Nintendo have just took a huge L, and it's going to affect Nintendo and other games forever. A couple days ago now, Nintendo's lawsuit against Palworld has been shifted by a lot, and that's due to the fact that one of their creature capture patents has actually been rejected by the Japanese Patents Office. And I just want to go through what exactly does that mean, and then what that means overall for gaming, what it means for Nintendo, and what it means for games like Palworld. So first of all, what is the creature capture patent, and what does it do, and what does it mean? Well, there's actually multiple versions of this patent or patent. I'm British in case you can't tell. But all of these boil down to one thing, and that is the prevention or the ownability for Nintendo to own the action of capturing creatures. Specifically, what they're after is to patent the idea of you in a video game finding a quote-unquote monster, throwing specifically, and this is important, a ball at said monster, capturing it inside of that ball, and then owning that monster. And like I said, one of these patents have been rejected before, and now we've had another one being rejected mid-lawsuit against Palworld. First of all, it's important to note that I think this is really weird, because in Japan, you can actually sue a company and have these patents involved in that lawsuit, even if they are pending. So you might be thinking, how are they, activating these patents or patents mid-lawsuit? Well, you can just actually do that in Japan. You can use that as evidence and say, hey, we're, waiting for this patent to be activated, but it's relevant for the whole lawsuit, which you can imagine is really strange and doesn't really look great in court, and it especially doesn't look great now that it has been rejected, or at least a part of it has been rejected. It's also really important to understand that Nintendo can actually amend this patent, and they have about 60 days to do so. However, personally, I don't think that's going to matter much, because this patent has been scrutinised by the office for basically just not holding any water, especially because there's a whole background of monster collecting games, and even if some of them don't involve, that ball, like we said is critical, that doesn't really matter. And again, this is just one piece of the lawsuit over Palworld overall. This is one piece of the puzzle, but it's a big piece that is going to really greatly affect the lawsuit. And this is a really interesting topic, because at the center of the topic is Palworld. And Palworld, in my opinion, do a lot of things okay, but some things are just kind of questionable. Mainly, personally for me, it's the creature designs. They are clearly, a lot of them, rip-offs of official Pokemon designs. And for me, I don't think that's ever gonna, overtake Nintendo or Pokemon or become more popular than the, biggest media franchise of all time. However, it does come across a little bit lazy, or at least, I think in Nintendo's eyes, a big screw you to the company. But in my eyes, what's not okay with this whole lawsuit isn't actually that, and it's not the biggest thing that Nintendo are going after Palworld for. What they're going after them for primarily is the capture of creatures in a video game with a ball. And of course, there's loads of problems with this. First of all, games like Palworld and other monster collecting games at this point are a genre of games, and they do not threat Nintendo or Pokemon in any way. Pokemon is a giant, it's a whale in this industry and genre, and just because there are other games similar to it does not mean they are under threat at all. For me, it's clear from Nintendo and Pokemon that this lawsuit is not about money, it is not about threats, it is not about being scarce as a franchise and scared of the potential, other franchises that could take over Pokemon. It is clearly Nintendo's lawyers doing what Nintendo's lawyers do best, which is scare people, scare tactics, and, go crazy with litigation. And it's one part of Nintendo that I just cannot stand. It's, it's one thing to sue someone for damages after they leak a game, it's another to sue a monster collection game because you throw balls at monsters, You do not own that. There's always a pioneer and a beginner in any video game genre, but you don't see other games and other gaming companies sue other companies just because, they're making a first-person shooter, for example. You don't see a lot of movies sue other horror movies because they have zombies or the idea of, a monster biting another monster, and then they turn into an undead monster, and so on and so on. Just because something is inspired by you doesn't mean, first of all, it's copying, and it also doesn't mean that it's a threat to you. And again, the other big problem with this is monster collecting games have been out for so long now. Whether they involve an actual ball, and whether what they're throwing a ball out is called a quote-unquote creature, they've, had a huge history, and there will be many more in the future. But what Nintendo and Pokemon are doing with this lawsuit isn't just affecting Palworld, it's affecting the future as a whole for monster collecting games. To me, this isn't just greedy, it's completely unnecessary. This whole thing kind of reminds me of when, do you remember the Fine brothers tried to copyright reacting? Just because you're a pioneer in it, just because you're one of the first, or not even the first, but one of the biggest, doesn't mean you own the genre, doesn't mean you can stop gamers for making a shape, and that shape happens to be a ball, and it happens to collect creatures. That's been going on and will go on for so many years. I know there is a group of people that genuinely do not like Palworld, and they don't like the fact that, they copy Pokemon designs, or they think the game in general just isn't for them, and is lazy or copying or whatever you want to say about Palworld, and that's completely fair. If you don't like Palworld, you don't like Palworld, and if you prefer Pokemon, good things come to you, sure. The problem is, again, this lawsuit is not just about Palworld. One of the biggest parts of the lawsuit, even bigger than the lawsuit against Palworld itself, is this patent, and the patent that's just been denied by the Japanese office. I am seeing a lot of people who, are rooting for Nintendo in this case, and I think that's just completely wrong. If you don't like Palworld, don't play it, but let's not pretend it's a competition against Pokemon. And the thing is about Palworld, let's say if you really do think it's a competition against Pokemon, Nintendo, and it's a threat, okay, you gotta ask yourself, why is it a threat? Is it a threat because some of the designs are copycats of Pokemon designs? Or is it a threat because it's genuinely just a better game? You see, Pokemon, if you're making a game and you've been heavily criticized over the recent years, for your games, not trying or not having a big enough budget, or having enough budget but not having the greatest development plan, or whatever your reason is, for not liking the latest Pokemon games, if you're being criticized heavily on that fact, why is your resourcing, your money and your attention and time not going towards making your games better for people, those same people who are complaining, but then instead that energy is going towards taking down other games? It's just completely backwards, in my opinion. I love Legends EA. I think it's a great game. I don't think it's a perfect game. I really like playing it. I love Pokemon as a whole, as a franchise. It's the designs, it's the names of Pokemon I've come to know and love over the years. But I think Pokemon are so blindsided in greed to the point where they think Palworld is genuinely a threat to them. It's not. And if you do think Palworld's a great game and it's doing a lot of things better than Pokemon games are, then honestly, more power to Palworld. It's doing it right. It's doing what all these fans have been asking Pokemon and Nintendo to do for a long time. And this whole pattern on, creature capturing, I feel like is so obvious. It's so in the limelight of being a pathetic excuse for a lawsuit. I feel like if Nintendo and Pokemon genuinely cared about, suing Palworld, they would probably be going after more specific things, like, again, the copying of certain Pokemon designs and names. But again, that's not what this lawsuit is about. A lot of these games are made because they've been inspired by Pokemon, just like, again, other genres, take a beat-em-ups game, for example. A lot of these games are inspired by others. Stardew Valley is an amazing example. It's a game that looked at Harvest Moon and was inspired by that gaming franchise, and Concerned Ape said, you know what, I want to make that, but I want to make that my way and I want to make it better. And you know what Harvest Moon didn't do? They didn't sue the creator of Stardew Valley. They obviously applauded him instead. It's like this whole thing is just an abuse of power, and many times games like this, games like Palworld aren't as big as Palworld. In fact, they're tiny. They are normally made by like one, two, maybe a handful of developers with little to no experience who are making just a cute 2D top-down creature collecting game with not a lot of experience and, more importantly, not a lot of money. And the amount of, settlement that Nintendo want out of these lawsuits is just so not only insane but completely unfair in my opinion. Palworld is just one piece of the puzzle. It's not just Palworld Pokemon and Nintendo are going after. It's small games by small developers with not a lot in the bank, yet they sue them for a hell of a lot more. This kind of reminds me of, and I guess this is more controversial because, Pokemon Legends EA was leaked before release date. So was Tears of the Kingdom. And of course, that's just plain illegal, right? You can't leak a game before it comes out. That's crazy. It's terrifying, and, well, that's the thing. It's kind of like an argument whether that actually affects sales for the game or just hypes it up. But in the case of the Tears of the Kingdom lawsuit against the person who leaked it on Discord, that person, I believe, had to pay like hundreds of thousands of dollars to Nintendo, or at least that's what they owe them. And I think this company just needs to understand that you are genuinely ruining that person's life, like, not just that person, like any kids they have and stuff like that. And of course, again, with leaking Tears of the Kingdom, yeah, that's just straight up illegal and theft. But that's not what Palworld and all these other games are. They're just little cute homages to Pokemon. Many of them love Pokemon and play them and encourage their fans of their games to play Pokemon. They're just offering an alternative. And yeah, Nintendo will ruin their lives with the amount of money they will end up having to pay. But this whole pattern about creature collecting is just, it just falls flat so quickly and is so pathetic. And it's like, it's such a basic game element. Like, okay, so you have to, there's creatures around, right? And you want to collect them. Okay, that is a thing. That's always been a thing. You don't even have to be a monster collecting game for that to be in your game. A lot of games just kind of have that on the side, right? Like a collection of creatures that you can capture. And then it's like, okay, well, it's a ball. Okay, so a ball, like how are we defining a ball? Like, it's not really normal for a creature collecting game to go anywhere else with outside of that ball, right? Like, that's just where your brain goes. It's like, okay, how do you capture it in a little spherical device? It just makes sense, and it's not necessarily stealing from Pokemon. And then my question is, what happens when a game, let's say this patent went through and Nintendo successfully sued Palworld. What happens then when a new game is, a monster collecting game, and they see a monster, and in the game, when you see a monster, you throw a cube, and then the monster is collected in that cube, and then it's yours, and you own that monster. Are you then telling me Nintendo aren't going to look at that and say, and file a new patent and then sue them? Like, is that really what Nintendo care about? Is this about money, or is it about a ball? Like, are you telling me if a new game did that with a pyramid, or, like Yokai Watch, like you befriend that yokai, or it's a cube, whatever, you're telling me that's the thing Nintendo are upset about, the ball? Like, come on, it's so blatantly obvious what they're doing here. And it's funny because personally, I love monster collecting games. One of my favourite franchises of all time is Yokai Watch. Yokai Watch is obviously inspired by Pokemon, but generally just monster collecting games as a whole. And that game's goal is not to copy or steal from Pokemon, it's just to create a great game that happens to be in the same genre. And I love Yokai Watch, but guess what, Nintendo? I can love Yokai Watch, but also love Pokemon at the same time. And honestly, if you want my opinion, this is just a big win for game creators, because if Yokai Watch didn't exist, obviously I wouldn't know what I was missing out on, but if somehow I could tell, and know what I was missing out on, and if the patent did succeed, I would probably assume that I would be missing for many generations, like, so many great monster collecting games. That would just dishearten me. It would be sad. Like, If this patent went through, it would be so dangerous to the future of, again, not just monster collecting games, but any game as a whole. Like, lots of games involve collecting, and a lot of those collections are living creatures. So anyway, that's what's going on. Hopefully this means the lawsuit, if not at least, doesn't falls through for the right reasons. Again, I do believe that, you know, stealing, like straight up copying designs and stuff like that, that's not cool. And it's just lazy, so fair enough. But I think the crux and whole point of this lawsuit is to boast, it's to steal, or okay, not steal, but you know, take money, and genuinely ruin people's lives to ultimately, if you ask these lawyers as individual people, does that really affect Pokemon? Does it really? Well, no. Again, this whole thing just reminds me of the Fine Brothers situation back in the day, and it's gross. So personally, I love Pokemon, but at the same time, love that Nintendo are losing this lawsuit, because I just think it's completely ridiculous. Let me know what you think though in the comment section below, and have a nice day.